in a city where the criminals are the ones who are supposed to protect you is a nightmare. But this was a reality in Chicago in the 1960s. However, instead of just ignoring crime, police officers plotted break-ins, transported stolen goods in patrol cars, and divided the profits. Richard Morrison, they called him the Babbling Burglar, a smooth-talking thief with sticky fingers and a photographic memory. What happens if the people who are supposed to protect us turn out to be the masterminds behind the biggest thefts? This is the Summerdale Scandal. Crime was a normal part of life in Chicago in the late 1950s. Al Capone and other well-known gangsters were long dead, but their shadow persisted. Corruption, yes, it was everywhere, in shadowy areas, smoky back rooms, and even City Hall. For ordinary people, crime wasn't shocking. It was just there. Well, at least you could rely on the police, or at least that's what people thought. But policing in America was stuck in the past. Graft, corruption, and political favors weren't just happening. They were practically part of the job description. But by 1960, the country was starting to change. Civil rights movements were gaining momentum, and people wanted something better, more freedom, more accountability, and most of all, a police force they could trust. Then came Summerdale, and it was like lighting a match in a gasoline-filled room. It didn't just expose corruption, it ignited outrage and pushed the demand for change. The Summerdale sector on the northwest side was known for being a calm, pleasant neighborhood, but was it really? Beneath the surface, a secret was brewing, a bombshell that would soon blast the lid off everything. This wasn't your typical shakedown where a driver is pulled over and suddenly owes a police officer a little something extra. No, this was entirely unique, even considering Chicago's long history of corruption. For the first time, uniformed officers didn't just bend the law. They broke it, as they planned, and executed break-ins while patrolling the streets of the city of big shoulders. Of course, Chicago residents were used to police officers requesting bribes or expecting gifts from store owners on holiday occasions. But robbing shops after hours with an experienced burglar like Richard Morrison, who acted as their lookout, that was a whole new level of betrayal. Even in a city as tough as Chicago, this was crossing a line. In January 1960, the police arrested Richard Morrison, then 23 years old. Just another robber, right? Caught mid-heist, he should have shut up. Instead, he sang like a canary and exposed something massive. Instead of denying everything, he dropped a bombshell. He confessed, and not to a single break-in. Nope. He was responsible for almost 50 break-ins. 50! He confessed to committing commercial burglaries in the city of Chicago alone, which resulted in losses of more than $100,000. Can you imagine how the police officers reacted when he said that? And this is where things get really wild. Morrison wasn't working alone on these tasks. Oh no, his team had 8 Chicago police officers on active duty. Yes, police officers. These men are full-fledged criminals with patrol cars, badges, and uniforms. It all started on October 1st, 1958. A group of corrupt Chicago cops kicked off their crime spree with a hit on the Western Tire and Auto Store. They wanted car supplies and officers. Frank Ferrasi and Al Karras used squad cars to clear the way. 3 carloads of loot were taken by Richard Morrison and his partner Crilly after they broke in with protection from patrolling squad cars. The cops then loaded stolen goods into their own squad cars. When disputes arose later over the loot, Morrison assured them, saying, "We'll just hit another store." And just like that, the Summerdale crew was in business, spending the next 9 months robbing the very people they had sworn to protect. These burglaries weren't just impulsive robberies. They were carefully planned. Instead of safeguarding neighborhoods, these police prowled them like predators after their prey. Their targets were shops stocked with radios, TVs, gadgets, and everything else they could find. But how did they enter? They had duplicate locks and keys from evidence rooms. They would even fake emergencies to divert the attention of other police. Clever, huh? The worst part was they carried out all of this while wearing the uniform that is supposed to represent security and trust. After Morrison spilled the beans, internal affairs and city detectives jumped in. They began a thorough investigation, and the corrupt police officers soon found themselves surrounded by walls. The man who made the police scandal public, Gerald Getty, met Morrison and said that Morrison only started talking because he believed the police had abandoned him. Morrison revealed how the officers from Summerdale assisted him in carrying out dozens of break-ins. At first, Getty was suspicious, thinking Morrison might be lying to get out of jail. But Morrison gave dates, places, and details, including draperies and golf clubs that were stolen. When Getty's team verified his statements with store owners, everything matched. The information was spot on, Getty admitted. It couldn't be a coincidence. But when investigators put him on the lie detector, what they found shocked even the skeptics. He, mostly, made it through. Convinced, Getty presented the results to State's Attorney Benjamin Adamowski, outlining the shocking extent of the crime. What's Morrison's reward for revealing the information? A shorter sentence? Here's the twist. He walked away with a one-way ticket to Florida and no jail time. Now, it was Adamowski's turn to go after the dishonest police officers. Adamowski selected Paul Newey to spearhead the mission. A federal man, straight as an arrow. He'd taken down drug lords and smugglers. Now he was coming for crooked cops. He was capable, experienced, and above all, honest enough to tackle this massive task. He directed the operation that revealed 8 Chicago police officers, completely upending the agency and shaking the city to its core. Paul Newey clearly recalled how they caught the 8 officers from Summerdale. When I first talked to Morrison, I was blown away by his memory. He remembered everything. Places, squad car numbers, times, even the loot, Newey said. After confirming Morrison's allegations, Newey informed State's Attorney Adamowski, and the two of them developed a plan to bring down the corrupt officers. The arrests were top secret. Just a small number of the department's trustworthy employees were informed to prevent giving the suspects away. Newey planned a late-night operation using techniques he had developed during his time with the CIA. They needed a plan that couldn't leak. One slip, and 8 cops would walk free. 8 specially selected teams were given sealed directives to take action at the same time. The authorities raided the houses of the accused policemen one by one, and what they discovered was unbelievable. There were stolen items all over, appliances, cash registers, and even goods from little family-run businesses. The evidence was overwhelming. You couldn't ignore it. Following the arrests, Newey personally visited each officer's residence to retrieve the looted items, and they pulled truckloads of stolen items out of all. But one house didn't have any stolen goods. It wasn't luck. It was something much deeper. Whose house was it, and how did he manage to slip through the cracks unnoticed? Turns out it was Patrick Grook Jr.'s place. He had a long police career under his belt and deep roots in the department. Most likely, he was told off, which allowed him to throw away the evidence. Even though no stolen goods were discovered, Grook couldn't avoid being charged. The other homes were a goldmine of stolen items. On January 15th, 1960, at 4 a.m., the raid was complete. 8 officers were arrested and 4 truckloads of stolen goods were seized. Reflecting on the perfect execution in mind, Newey remarked, "It felt like Mission Impossible." All of the arrested officers were quietly brought to the Union League Hall, far from the watchful eyes of the media. But the secrecy was short-lived. By the next morning, the Chicago Sun-Times reported it widely. When the news broke, it was like a bomb blasting off in Chicago. The headlines were explosive and the betrayal was unforgivable. People were furious, and the meetings at City Hall were jam-packed with angry locals seeking justice. This scandal was a wake-up call for the entire city. Benjamin Adamowski, the state attorney, didn't mince words during a press conference. People in that North Side area were receiving police participation in crimes instead of police protection, he said. He also raised the terrifying possibility that this might also be occurring in other areas. The statistics were alarming. Reports at the time cited a 48% increase in break-ins in Summerdale, while the city as a whole had an 11% increase. Local companies suffered the most. Some owners were forced to close their businesses completely, while others saw their insurance premiums skyrocket, or worse, canceled outright. These guys cleaned me out 4 times, taking everything from guns to TVs to appliances, revealed one furious store owner. Then, one of them had the courage to come back at Christmas and ask for a handout. Can you believe that? For many, this wasn't just another police scandal. It felt like the system they relied on had completely failed them. Public outrage boiled over, and the pressure for reform became too big to ignore. The message was loud and clear. Enough was enough. Even Mayor Richard J. Daley, who was known for his iron grip over the city, couldn't sugarcoat it. He called it the most shocking and disgraceful incident in the history of the Chicago Police Department. And he wasn't just talking for show. He knew this wasn't going to fix itself on its own. Something significant needed to change soon. Mayor Daley knew the city needed a revolutionary figure who could bring back trust. So he called O.W. Wilson, one of the major guns, a reformer with steel in his spine. Daley needed a miracle, and Wilson didn't believe in excuses. He was a famous reformer and criminologist who was well known for his honesty, self-control, and direct approach. When Wilson took over as the new superintendent of police, let's say he wasted no time. First on the schedule, a complete makeover. He introduced a 5-member police board to improve monitoring. He strengthened the hiring and training processes to ensure that only the best people wore the badge. And let's not forget the discipline. Wilson hammered down illegal behavior rather than simply cracking down. Wilson gradually began to turn the trend with a zero-tolerance attitude for corruption and a new approach to force management. It took time for the department's damaged reputation to recover, but under his leadership, trust was gradually rebuilt. Although the journey was difficult, Wilson was the right man for the job. The 8 officers were charged and prosecuted. Some served jail, while others lost their reputations and pensions. The Chicago Police Department would battle the shadow of Summerdale for years. The Summerdale Scandal is still regarded as one of the most infamous cases of police corruption in American history. It showed that no one is above the law because of their badge. It is very difficult to regain trust once it has been lost. Although reform is difficult, it is definitely achievable. And that's a wrap. So what's worse, a thief in the night or a thief in uniform? Did justice win here, or did the system just get smarter at hiding its flaws? Let us know in the comments. And if you love this video, then check out this other one right here. Then YouTube thinks you will enjoy even more with your watching patterns.